Excellencies, honorable members of parliament, ladies and gentlemen, dear audience. Life is what happens when you're busy making other plans, John Lennon wisely said. The Armenian government, parliament, the First Lady of Armenia, and women political leaders planned for an in-person WPL summit in Yerevan, the beautiful capital of Armenia. The theme was very much to the point: democracy, peace and security. However, the changed security situation in the region and the humanitarian catastrophe in Nagorno-Karabakh left us with no other option than to postpone the WPL summit in Armenia. The immediate lesson to learn is, now more than ever, peace talks are essential, and women need to be part of them. We have tough, trying times. The Geneva Academy today, in 2023, monitors no less than 110 armed conflicts that are currently ongoing in the world. The Eurasia Group identifies mass disruption via new technologies, undermining democracies, as a top risk. Disinformation is raging as an element of each conflict. I could make the list of dangers, risks, and challenges longer. However, the WPL Democracy, Peace and Security Summit has a different goal: build community between women political leaders from around the globe. Strengthen connection, focus on communication. We need to talk to each other. There's one joint element in all armed conflicts, no matter where in the world the violence and fighting is happening. Women are absent from the leadership. Women remain excluded and marginalized in conflict prevention, during conflict, and peace negotiations. But facts and figures are clear. It is better for everyone, for people and societies, when women are in leadership. Representation matters. These facts and figures clearly show women negotiate longer-lasting peace. Women de-escalate. Women build trust. Women have broader perspectives on what means security. People want peace. The message from WPL is clear. Representation matters. For peace, we need more women in leadership. Thank you.
Hello, dear friends at the WPL Summit Armenia. I am delighted to send in this message to advocate the fact that we need more women in leadership for peace. Between 1992 and 2019, women were, on the average, only 13% of negotiators. They were just about 6% of mediators and 6% of signatories in major peace processes around our world. About 7 out of every 10 peace processes did not include women negotiators or women signatories. This is not good. We know that the participation of women in these processes before, during, and after conflicts often increase the prospects of peace. So we make a strong case as we gather for the Armenia Summit that women leadership globally, locally, at state levels, in communities is really important for us to have a peaceful world where conflicts can be prevented, conflicts can be resolved, and peace and order can be restored for inclusive prosperity, because there cannot be prosperity without peace, and there cannot be peace without the participation and leadership of women. Thank you very much.
Excellencies, dear friends, on behalf of National Assembly of Armenia, I would like to express my appreciation for all the perspectives being shared today. The Armenian Parliament, the government of Armenia, and the Women Political Leaders Network had to postpone the summit in Yerevan but we find it important to share our messages on the role of women in building democracy, peace, and security. With conflicts and crises on the rise, they are as relevant as ever across continents, cultures, and political systems. In Armenia, women constitute 43% of parliamentarians, yet we still lack genuine representation at the local and regional level, as well as equal representation in the defense sector. The vast majority of Armenians forcibly displaced weeks ago by Azerbaijan from Nagorno-Karabakh are women and children, yet their voices were never heard in international fora and their plea for justice was dismissed. We can easily see this appalling reality in basically every conflict and emergency, where marginalization and exclusion of vulnerable groups, as well as denial of fundamental rights, would grow into crisis, violence, and war. We strongly believe that human rights, peace, and security are interdependent and mutually reinforcing. Gender equality and meaningful participation of women in an important foundation for building justice at home and pursuing dialogue beyond borders. Nowadays, Armenia hosts more than 100,000 refugees from Nagorno-Karabakh, survivors of an inhumane blockade, ethnic cleansing, and other awful crimes. But I am convinced that the women of Nagorno-Karabakh will be at the forefront of the struggle for sustainable solutions, including the right to return in safety and dignity and live peacefully in their native land, and the right to build a democratic society free from pressure and discrimination. Dear friends, war and humanitarian emergencies in our region forced us to postpone the WPL summit, but also made us more resolved in joining forces to amplify the diverse voice of women leaders to prevent conflicts elsewhere by initiating dialogue and demanding peace. Armenia highly values the immense work that has been done by the leadership and team of WPL for preparation of the summit. I truly hope that soon we will have an opportunity to welcome you all to Yerevan. Thank you very much.
Excellencies, friends, colleagues, I join women political leaders in calling for peace everywhere. We do not want conflicts and wars anywhere in the world. Wars are an insult to our shared humanity. Wars ought to be a thing of the past. Women, as mothers and political leaders, must make their voices heard to say no to wars. Women in politics should have a key role in preventing conflicts. They must have their seats when negotiating peace. Women's engagement makes peacekeeping and peacebuilding effective. Women need to keep working for equality, inclusion, and representation. Women in politics are the best reflection of an inclusive democracy. In Bangladesh, our women have always been part of our democratic struggles. We continue to find our own pathways without any political model imposed from outside. Women political leaders can work for change from within their societies. They can mobilize the whole of society to prevent violent extremism and combat terrorism. Our world must get honest about addressing the root cause of terrorism. I thank WPL for highlighting women's contribution to democracy, peace, and security. Bangladesh ranks high in a global index on women's political empowerment. We commit to maintaining our international advocacy on women, peace, and security. Thank you all again.
The world of politics is still unequal for women and men, both in terms of access and outcomes. Representation of women is far below parity, especially in committees dealing with hard security, and women's contributions continue to be severely marginalized in peace negotiations. Yet, representative democracy requires that every citizen can engage fully, equitably, and with genuine significance in the political process. Peace can only be built with the entire population represented. This enables decisions that are credible, legitimate, and sustainable. This is why women's rights and gender equality are a high political priority for the EU, both in our internal as well as our external action. The EU maintained its commitment to establishing a unified approach to women, peace, and security within the Union and among its member states. This has been achieved through the development of policy frameworks and Council conclusions. We consistently strive to set ambitious targets and take concrete actions to improve gender balance and enhance gender expertise within our own institutions. We have created platforms like the Afghan Women Leaders Forum, providing an avenue for women from various backgrounds to voice their perspectives and positions on the future of their nation. In Armenia, our EU for Dialogue and EU for Peace programs actively involve women in both peace-building and reconciliation efforts, emphasizing their critical role in shaping peaceful and harmonious societies. I welcome the Armenian government's continued efforts for a more equal Armenia. The second National Action Plan for the implementation of the UN Security Council Resolution 1325 on women, peace and security. I see an opportunity for you to advance on this path, and I encourage the adoption of the equality law that tackles all grounds of anti-discrimination.
Excellencies, ladies and gentlemen, at the outset, let me express sincere gratitude to Women Political Leaders Network and personally to Madam Silvana Povmerin for almost 1 year-long fruitful collaboration that will surely translate into a successful summit in Yerevan, hopefully when conditions allow. While choosing a theme for the summit, Armenia and WPL intended to target the areas where women's participation is intrinsically linked to fair and, most importantly, sustainable outcomes. Deepening global insecurity and multiple humanitarian crises are affecting everyone. At the same time, inadequate response to aggressive militarism and gross violation of human rights create environment of impunity where women and girls are at the heightened risk of violence and abuse. Our collective goal should be to mainstream voices and agency of women to break the vicious circles of victimhood and demand change. Excellencies, dear colleagues, human rights-based approach is at the core of Armenia's reform agenda. Gender equality stands as an important cross-cutting priority for the government. Last year, we adopted the second National Action Plan for implementation of Security Council Resolution 1325. In the course of just 3 years, Armenian people were through calamities of wars and subsequent ethnic cleansing of Nagorno-Karabakh, as well as military aggression against our sovereign borders. As a means of terror and intimidation, despicable war crimes were committed by Azerbaijani military, specifically targeting Armenian servicewomen. Yet we continue to believe that pursuit of peace, consolidated democratic institutions, and genuine equality make our society and our army stronger. Armenia maintains principled positions on need for vocal multilateral responses to most serious crimes and gross human rights violations, and advocates for more effective functioning of early warning and prevention mechanisms. All these endeavors can bring about results of the recognition that women's full, equal, and meaningful participation in decision-making, security sector, peace building and humanitarian domain turn into concrete actions at local, regional, and multilateral levels. Armenia stands ready to contribute to these efforts. We will be looking forward to welcoming you all in Yerevan to give a platform to everyone who's ready to act to the cause of equality, peace, and justice. I thank you.
Dear women political leaders, it is regretful that in the face of the humanitarian situation in Nagorno-Karabakh, the WPL Democracy, Peace and Security Summit in Yerevan had to be postponed. I would have liked to be there in person. We are living through very difficult times, with armed conflicts and wars being waged across multiple continents, and civilians bearing the main burden. We all know that peace entails more than the end of shelling. It also entails ending the post-war violence at community level and delivering justice to those whose rights have been violated. The peace negotiation parties have a responsibility to respond not just to the security needs of men, but also of those of women. This is a task that is unlikely to be delivered if the world of politics continues to be unequal. There is no question that women need to be brought to decision-making tables in equal numbers to men. And for this to happen, we need to work on gender equality in politics and in decision-making resolutely, not only in times of war, but also in times of peace.
Dear friends, we are living in time of crisis. Armenians living in Nagorno-Karabakh had to flee to Armenia, creating a very difficult situation both for them and for the country. It's more than a year and a half since Russia's illegal invasion, where many women and children have been killed and assaulted. And 2 years has now passed since the Taliban took over the control in Afghanistan, and the situation for women and girls are horrific. The brave women in Iran are still protesting on a misogynist regime, many of them paying a heavy price with prison, torture, and even death. I'm very glad that the 2023 Nobel Peace Prize has been awarded to the jailed Iranian women activist Narges Mohammadi for her fight against the oppression of all women in Iran and her fight to promote human rights and freedom. Since United Nations adopted the Resolution 1325 on women, peace and security more than 20 years ago, we know more about how important it is to include women in all aspects of peace and security. Conflicts and the use of arms disproportionately affect groups already in vulnerable situations and often highlight issues of power, cultural expectations, division of labor, and family reproduction. Women are chronically underrepresented at key forums where decisions on disarmament and non-proliferation are made. Because of this, we actively and collectively lose important perspectives. Research shows that peace agreements where women took part are more sustainable. Another important fact is that women are not on the table. Crimes like rape will not be considered part of the peace agreement, and that demands accountability. It will be seen as a so-called ordinary crime. And we know that rape is used as a terrible tool in wars and conflicts. In conflicts and war, a gender analysis for each mission needs to be done. Resources need, for example, to be allocated to secure places where women gather. My government pursued a feminist foreign policy. It made a real change for millions of women and girls. I hope that more governments would follow that example.
For the Council of Europe, gender equality is central to the promotion of human rights, democracy, and the rule of law, and to the peace and security agenda. We know that conflicts, displacement, and other global geopolitical challenges disproportionately affect women and girls in many parts of the world, including in Europe as we speak. This crisis can both exacerbate existing gender inequalities and create new ones that leave women at increased risk of violence, discrimination, and social exclusion. It is essential to recognize and respond to gender-based violence, including sexual violence, in conflict and post-conflict situations. The Council of Europe Istanbul Convention, which addresses violence against women, can provide precious guidance in this area, as seen in our work in Ukraine on conflict-related violence against women, including conflict-related sexual violence. As you know, the Council of Europe, through a large partial agreement, has established a register of damage incurred as a result of the Russian aggression against Ukraine. With a victim-centered approach, the register will necessarily be sensitive to the needs of women. Integrating a gender equality dimension into international relations is essential for advancing peace and security, enhancing development outcomes, and strengthening democracy and human rights. This requires the full participation of women in all aspects of conflict prevention and peace negotiations, as required by Council of Europe standards. Gender balance alone will not solve all problems, but together with recognizing gender equality and women's rights as a core element of multilateral relations and crisis management, it can help bring about durable peace and inclusive development. The Council of Europe is committed to supporting women in all their diversity as positive agents for conflict prevention, conflict resolution, relief and recovery, and in building sustainable peace.
When it comes to social issues and humanitarian crises, women bear the brunt. But they are also key agents of change. Women's leadership of humanitarian and development initiatives ensures that their specific challenges and unique experiences are accurately represented and considered. And yet, across the world, inequality prevents women from accessing the skills, knowledge, resources and networks they need to successfully spearhead their efforts. At the Cherie Blair Foundation for Women, we see every day just how important and effective women-led initiatives are in tackling crises. Take Damilola Asenai, whose organization provides affordable solar energy in Nigeria, where 93 million people are without power. But she also runs an academy teaching other Nigerian women and girls to be leaders in technology and renewable energy, so they too can drive change. Or take Mercy Mancini, who founded her Johannesburg-based social enterprise to create jobs for other women during the pandemic. She also runs projects that tackle violence against women, enhance women's voices in decision-making, and provide training, professional development, and counseling for women. When women are empowered to lead successful organizations and initiatives, they uplift other women, build communities, and bring about positive transformations in their societies. They change the world for the better. That means giving women what they need to succeed and removing the barriers that hold them back. It means taking action. Together, we can ensure that women are front and center, leading our shared journey towards a fairer, more peaceful, and more prosperous world. Thank you.
Women's engagement in peacekeeping, peace building, peacemaking is absolutely critical. The resolution 1325 from the Security Council, which already has almost 25 years, recognized that and established a series of recommendations to improve women's participation. Unfortunately, life shows that this hasn't happened, and it hasn't happened with the pace it should. Although there is clear proof that when women are involved in peace processes, those processes last longer, are more stable. In fact, statistics show that after 15 years of a peace negotiation, 35% more stand when women have been involved. And why is so? Women are active in economic recovery, social cohesion, which is critical at a moment of reconciliation within societies, and women are also very important in political legitimacy. So it is fundamental that women are sitting at the table during the negotiations of a peace process, that they have important leadership positions when governments are established after a peace process has been finalized, and that women play their role to secure that peace is lasting for everyone in that society and finding a way not to go backwards and go back into conflict again.
Each year, there is a global call for women's participation in decision-making. Yet too often, these calls fall on deaf ears. In spite of this, women continue to strive towards what matters to them, what matters to their families, what matters to their communities and their countries. As nurturers, women prioritize and focus on peace, on security, and on improving the quality of lives of their people. The absence of women around the decision-making table means we will struggle, and we will continue to struggle with finding peace, as is evident with what is going on around the world. We suffer and carry the brunt of the challenges and obstacles that are thrown at us. But we will not be discouraged, because we know we have the solutions to lasting peace. Our call is for lasting peace beyond the egos and beyond the power to dominate and control. Having women at the decision-making table is not a favor or a privilege. It is our right as grandmothers, as mothers, as sisters, as daughters, and as partners in the struggle for the survival of humanity. We call on everyone who genuinely desires peace and security to allow women the space to make decisions that will change the global trajectory, bringing peace to all. Thank you.
Gender mainstreaming and diversity in all policy areas is the key. It's not only better for us women, it's better for the society as a whole. Data shows us the participation of women in peace agreements increases the probability of the agreement to last 15 years by 35%. So it is essential that not one privileged homogeneous group decides what they think is the best for a multitude of individuals. Women make up more than 50% of the world's population. Our voice, our needs must be included in foreign and security policy as well. The same goes for people from different ethnicity, class, age, or religion. So equal representation is key in all policy areas.
Dear ladies and gentlemen, let me express my utmost gratitude for inviting me to speak in honor of the Women Political Leaders Democracy, Peace and Security Summit. As we all know, the summit foreseen to take place in Armenia today was postponed. Unfortunately, this highlights once more the importance of our joint struggle for freedom and security, for the people of Armenia and for everybody all over the world. I'm convinced that this worldwide struggle for peace and democracy requires strong leaders in politics, in society, in communities. Women and men that facilitate a culture of accountability and trust, who communicate openly to the public, who remain calm and act with foresight in the face of danger. Last year, I met such leaders when I visited Kiev. During a meeting in the Ukrainian parliament, we had to seek shelter from Russian rockets in a bunker with the Rada parliamentarians. In an intensive exchange, we talked about Ukraine's accession processes to the EU and NATO, as well about the status of human rights in Ukraine. It was there, huddled together in the dark of the bunker, that I saw the first-hand the strengths of female political leaders. Women that in a moment filled with terror, were not only thinking about their own families and loved ones, but about the future of Ukraine and its institutions. Still, we must not only focus on the women in Ukraine, but on leaders all around the world, for example in Iran and Afghanistan, where women fight diligently for a future in peace and dignity. Today, I think of those brave women in Israel who face terrorism, who has to cope with pain and losses, and who are going on to lead, be in the Knesset, in their communities, in science or companies. It is with this outlook on strong female leadership that I wish to end my message, commending once more the women political leaders' efforts to connect and support female political leaders to find their strengths, power and will, leading the way into freedom and a more secure and peaceful future. Together, we will be stronger.
Cuando nos enfrentamos a un conflicto internacional, pueden ocurrir dos cosas. Una, que este siga escalando por la falta de voluntad o la incapacidad para llegar a acuerdos y resolverlos. Y por otra, que se ejerzan acciones para bajar su intensidad y llegar a un acuerdo por la vía diplomática. A mí me parece que en este sentido las mujeres podemos ejercer un rol importante, teniendo un liderazgo que hasta ahora no es el que estamos acostumbrados en materia internacional. Las mujeres no tenemos diferencias para actuar en política. No somos distintas y tenemos las mismas capacidades para negociar, para dialogar, para lograr resolver situaciones complejas. Pero a mí me parece que cuando se trata de temas como el logro de la paz, como crisis humanitarias, sí tenemos una capacidad para empatizar con el dolor y con la afectación que pueden sufrir las personas, sobre todo las que son las más vulnerables o que representan a grupos de la sociedad que son menos visibilizados, como son, por ejemplo, los menores de edad, los adultos mayores, grupos de discapacitados u otros. Entonces, hoy día yo considero que no puede dejarse afuera a las mujeres en la participación de la resolución de estos conflictos, porque tenemos la capacidad de tener una mirada integral en donde se consideren todas las miradas a la hora de tomar decisiones y ejercer cualquier tipo de acción para lograr caminar en una sociedad que cada día deje atrás, en lo posible, todas las actitudes de discriminación, de violencia y de segregación que hoy día estamos enfrentando.
Hello, I'm Janine Mabunda, former Speaker of the National Assembly of the Democratic Republic of the Congo. And as you all know, my country has gone through many conflicts over the last decade. And the peaceful changeover we saw in 2018, thanks to President Kabila, was a decisive factor in building peace in our country. However, the east of my country is still plagued by armed clashes between regulatory forces and armed rebel groups, resulting in many deaths and thousands of displaced people within our own country. So I'm firmly convinced that the best things to do is to engage in dialogue to prevent conflict based on my past experience. The participation of women will be an asset in understanding the cause, the roots of the conflict, and possible ways out. This requires policies, programs that promote gender equality, awareness raising, and development of women negotiation skills and mediation skills too. I know that elsewhere in the world, women's participation in dialogue for conflict prevention has resulted in trust, respect, and relationship where there have been misunderstanding, suspicion, and tension. By providing a forum in which different individuals commit to listening to each other, we are creating a path for peace, we are creating a path for better understanding. Thank you.
Dear colleagues, dear sisters, we may not be in Yerevan at our WPL session, but our hearts and minds are with women and girls who face conflict, women who flee, who leave their birthplaces in search of more stability, in search of peace. Women who carry their children, their elders, and very few belongings packed in buses, leaving behind their livelihoods, their homes, and their whole lives. At this time of conflict in various parts of the world, we must seek to give courage to women who lead the efforts to offer relief to those who suffer. For women who are at the forefront of efforts to receive refugees, who are at the forefront of efforts to provide medical assistance, to find accommodation, and provide consolation to them. But most importantly, we must seek to reinforce the role of women as agents of change, of progress. We aspire that women can and must lead the efforts for conflict resolution and for peace building. And as the consequences of conflict often fall heavy on women's shoulders, women must play a vital role in policies that prevent and resolve conflicts, promote dialogue and reconciliation, and rebuild trust and cooperation, and ultimately peace. Coming from Cyprus, which is still divided, I acknowledge and I appreciate the role of women in peace building and reconciliation efforts. Promoting the implementation of UN Resolution 1325 is an urgency. WPL must be at the forefront of this effort. My sisters, we must intensify our efforts to empower women so that they can be able to substantially contribute to building a more peaceful and prosperous future.
Ladies, I'm very sorry that due to the conflicting borders of Armenia and Azerbaijan, we are not able to vote in person. I hope it will happen soon. I believe that you agree that it is extremely important to highlight the pivotal and indispensable role that women play in peace negotiations. Women are not just passive victims of conflict, they are powerful agents of change who bring a unique and invaluable perspective to the table. Their participation in peace process is not merely a gesture towards gender equality, but a necessity for achieving sustainable and lasting peace. Here is why women participation in peace negotiation is crucial. Firstly, women bring a different lens to the negotiation room. They often have a deeper understanding of the human toll of conflict as they bear the brunt of violence and displacement. Their perspectives draw attention to issues like gender-based violence and the unique needs of women and children. By addressing these issues, peace agreements become more comprehensive and responsive to entire population needs. Secondly, women are natural peacemakers. They are often at the forefront of grassroots peace-building efforts, working tirelessly with their communities to heal division, bridge gaps, and restore trust. Their ability to foster reconciliation is an invaluable asset in the pursuit of peace. Let us not forget that women participation is not just a matter of principle, it is a matter of effectiveness. Research consistently shows that peace agreements that involve women are more likely to be comprehensive, sustainable, and successful. Thank you very much.
Dear friends, I was deeply saddened to hear about the postponement of the Women Political Leaders Summit in Armenia due to the military aggression in Nagorno-Karabakh. Our recent European Parliament resolution very clearly states, we stand in solidarity with the people of Nagorno-Karabakh. They have a right to live in dignity and security. Azerbaijan's attacks on peaceful civilians are war crimes, and we condemn them in the strongest terms possible. And I strongly hope that the summit can soon return to Armenia. It has never been more needed. I wholeheartedly support your initiative to amplify women's role in peace and security processes. It is a cause incredibly close to my heart. And why? The answer is simple. Women must be present at every single table where decisions are made, including peacemaking negotiations. These processes profoundly affect their lives and communities. Women experience conflict differently.
but they are there. They are affected, and their voices must be heard. Research also underscores the power of female voices. When women negotiators are present, the result is more long-lasting peace. The words of Simone Weil deeply resonate with me. We must never forget the power of compassion and empathy in our pursuit of justice. Simone Weil was a Holocaust survivor and the first female president of the European Parliament. And she reminded us that we can never achieve true justice without understanding others' experiences and embracing diverse perspectives. So let's work together to ensure that women's voices are finally heard. Thank you.
Merci au Women's Political Leaders Forum aujourd'hui de nous donner la parole en tant que femmes et pour parler du rôle fondamental des femmes dans le processus politique et notamment les dialogues sur la prévention des conflits. Les conflits aujourd'hui sont très nombreux malheureusement, les menaces sont hybrides et protéiformes et les femmes sont souvent les premières victimes des conflits armés. Et elles subissent vraiment les conséquences dévastatrices des guerres, que ce soit sous forme de violences sexuelles, de déplacements forcés, de pertes familiales ou de destruction de leurs moyens de subsistance. Alors, leur voix ou notre voix doit absolument être entendue. Et il me semble aussi que les femmes ont un grand rôle à jouer dans le sens où nous représentons quand même la moitié de la population mondiale et que nous avons, et ça peut-être c'est une expérience personnelle, plus d'aptitude au dialogue que souvent les hommes qui sont beaucoup plus portés sur des questions de pouvoir. Donc je pense que si nous nous rassemblons, si nous discutons, si nous rentrons en dialogue, on peut faciliter le dialogue beaucoup plus largement et parvenir à des solutions pacifiques. Alors, notre participation doit être reconnue, c'est une question de justice, mais aussi une stratégie efficace pour parvenir à une paix durable dont notre monde a si besoin. Merci.
Ganz herzliche Grüße aus dem Abgeordnetengebäude des Deutschen Bundestages hier in Berlin, liebe Silvana Koch-Marin, liebe Frauen. Herzliche Grüße, ja, weil es darum geht, dass Frauen für Frauen einstehen, aber Frauen auch Perspektiven einbringen. Kein Staat ist ohne Frauen zu machen und Frauen sind systemrelevant, natürlich. Aber warum sind sie auch so relevant bei Verhandlungen? Wenn die Perspektive von Frauen fehlt bei Verhandlungen, fehlt auch am Ende der Zugang zu dem, was unterschiedliche Gruppen auch brauchen, wenn ein Konflikt gelöst werden muss. Konflikte werden meist dann gelöst, wenn beide Seiten gut damit leben können. Und das heißt auch, dass beide Seiten verstanden werden. Frauen haben andere Zugänge, um Konflikte anzusprechen, um Lösungen auf den Tisch zu legen. Es geht nicht um alles oder nichts, sondern es geht um ein Aufeinander zubewegen. Und deshalb nicht Frauen gegen Männer, aber Frauen mit Männern und umgekehrt. Und wenn zum Beispiel die russische Seite nur mit Männern zu Gesprächen kommt, dann ist eines klar, dass ein ganz großer Teil einer Gesellschaft dann ausgeblendet wird. Und deshalb kann ich nur dafür werben, dass Frauen in allen Bereichen teilhaben, nicht damit es den Frauen besser geht, sondern damit es der gesamten Gesellschaft besser geht, denn so kann man besser Wege finden, um zusammenzuarbeiten. Also, kein Staat ist ohne Frauen zu machen.
Hello, everybody. I think the recent attack in Armenia, Israel from the WPL group, showing us very strongly how much within our country. So here, a lot of sexual violence, which is very often used as a power tool in conflicts by men, by terrorists. And we will hear a lot about civilians, women and children in Gaza, which will be not protected by Hamas. Instead, they will be sacrificed. And I think that's just one more example that shows us, and it's so important, women are part of the peace process,
that women are empowered, and that women are a strong part of the community, politics in a country, because otherwise we will not come to peace, we will not come to freedom. Without women's rights, there's no chance worse. Samar.
Las mujeres siempre optaremos por la paz. Como integrante de Women Political Leaders y mexicana, he visto los graves efectos que las violencias generan para las naciones, las familias y, por supuesto, para cada persona. Las guerras empiezan con la intolerancia, la discriminación y las violencias cotidianas. Se nutren del desprecio al otro, a la otra, del prejuicio y del miedo. En nuestro país hemos visto desplazamientos de familias y comunidades enteras como consecuencia de la presencia del crimen organizado, de las diferencias ideológicas y religiosas, a causa de la pobreza y la marginación, que son otras tantas formas de violentar los derechos humanos de las personas. Como mujer, como líder parlamentaria en el Congreso de mi país, he apostado por combatir las violencias que nacen desde las relaciones de género. Las mujeres queremos vivir en paz, en nuestras relaciones más próximas, en las familias, en nuestra comunidad, en nuestra escuela, en nuestro centro de trabajo. Queremos paz y seguridad todos los días, para todas y todos.
In these turbulent times, a message cannot begin without expressing my deep solidarity with those who have fallen victims of irrational forces, those who have their peace stolen from north to south, from Armenia to the Middle East. I send from Mexico my condolences to families of Israel in Gaza who are suffering. In a world where peace has never been absolute and decisions of war have been dominated by men in public spaces, we must question, where do we women stand? We who make up to 50% of population? We must state, violence must stop. Children and women need and deserve peace. Where conflicts arise, the women step forward to build peace, just as the Awards did in the respective countries. Lehman Baggy in Liberia amid civil war, Shireen Ebadi defending the rights of education of Iranian women, and Tawakkul Karman in Yemen, fighting for women representation and voices at peace negotiations tables, because representation matters. The United Nations, through the Convention of All Elimination of All Forms of Discrimination Against Women, CEDAW, establishes a correlation between the increase in violence against women and the outbreak of conflicts, so the negative effects on women are greater. CEDAW compels signatory states to promote women participation in conflict prevention and peace negotiation. The role of women in dialogues to achieve peace must be permanent, recognized and promoted until it becomes a state of normalcy, not an exception. To address armed violence initiated by men, women stand for peace. Symbol of diplomacy, the Peace Palace can become more than a concept. As a congresswoman, from my position on the Foreign Relations Committee, as I have done all my life, I advocate for a gender equality agenda, for non-violence in all its forms, and for peace. Difficult times are the test for all of us, are the times to stand for peace.
My fellow women political leaders, I extend my most heartfelt concern for the people affected by the current hostilities in Nagorno-Karabakh. I join the call for the peaceful resolution of conflict and the easing of tensions in the region. Wars which were once fought by men in battlefields have increasingly become civil wars in populated areas, which means increasing the impact on women and children, exacerbated by gender inequalities that already exist in society. I am all too familiar with these kinds of situations. As a governor of the Philippine Red Cross, I am aware that the International Federation of Red Cross and Armenian Red Cross teams have reported that majority of the people coming across the border are women, children, and the elderly. As a public servant, I have personally been involved in resolving and addressing a wide range of humanitarian emergencies, from aiding victims of natural and man-made disasters to rescuing those on the receiving end of abuse. And if there is one thing I realized, is that there is an extra layer of harm done to women, girls, and children in crisis situations, including armed conflicts, being the targets of sexual violence and exploitation, among other gender-based abuses. As women political leaders, we have the power to mitigate, if not reverse, this unfortunate reality. Through our combined efforts, we can formulate policies and programs and devise strategies that will highlight the role of women in peace building and women's engagement in all conflict resolution strategies, as contained in a landmark UN resolution in the year 2000. We as women leaders must embrace our role as agents of change and assert ourselves and the solutions that we offer. We as women leaders must always make sure that our voices and the voices of other women will be truly heard. Thank you very much. Maraming salamat.
Images of turmoil and violence haunt us in Ukraine, Armenia, Iran, Yemen, Ethiopia, Haiti, Pakistan, and now Israel, to name a few. These conflicts take place in populated communities, attacking innocent civilians with shocking brutality. They result in unspeakable humanitarian crises that have hurt the most vulnerable: women, children, the elderly, the sick, and the disabled. When most vulnerable are affected, women tend to carry the greatest brunt because they are the primary caregivers in the family and in communities, and women in particular suffer distinct forms of abuse in an armed conflict. That said, it is essential for women to participate in conflict prevention and resolution before, during, and after the conflict. In October 2000, the UN Security Council issued the landmark resolution 1325, calling for the increased participation of women in the peace process. It was the first time that the role of women in international security was given formal recognition. But 23 years later, the world has yet to see critical mass in women's representation in the peace process. 7 out of every 10 peace processes still do not include women as mediators, signatories, or witnesses. With more armed conflict carried out among civilians, thus affecting more women, there is an urgent need to intensify calls for a national action plan to ensure participation of women in the peace process. Since women experience armed conflict differently, their participation in the peace process is necessary because they provide gender perspectives in conflict management. They also bring in alternative approaches to conflict prevention, focusing more on the grassroots level, reconciliation, education, human rights, and welfare. In 2014, the Philippine government and the country's largest Muslim rebel group signed a peace accord to end decades of armed insurgency that has left more than 120,000 dead. This agreement made the Philippines the first country to have had a female chief negotiator who signed a final peace accord. Women are strong pillars for peace building. Women are bridges for conflict resolutions. The world needs peace, and peace needs women. Thank you.
It is often said that the first victim of an armed conflict is true. Maybe so, but the next victim, and I think the most relevant, are people, especially women, children, the elderly, people who do not have sophisticated weapons to defend themselves. Social conflict, and especially armed conflicts, impact women and girls differently from men and boys. Women and girls constitute the majority of displaced and refugees as a result of wars and are at risk of grave physical harm. But women can also contribute with their knowledge and perspective to peace negotiations. In these difficult times, we must hope that sooner or later, under more or less favorable conditions, time and humanity will lead the conflict parties to resolve their differences at the negotiate table. So let us continue to fight for peace and remember J.F. Kennedy's appeal and Hague Code. Let us begin anew remembering on both sides that civility is not a sign of weakness. Let us never negotiate out of fear, but let us never fear to negotiate. I look forward to seeing you all at the upcoming WPL Democracy, Peace and Security Summit. See you soon.
السيدات والسادة الكرام، من المؤسف أن النساء هن الضحايا الأبرز للصراعات، وأن أصواتهن لا تزال غير مسموعة. رغم كل الجهود المبذولة وبعدسة المرأة الحقوقية، أود أن أتقاسم معكم بعض الأفكار التي تقدم استجابة لأوضاع المعاناة الإنسانية التي تعيشها النساء. علمتنا التجربة أن تمكين النساء في مجال القيادة وصنع القرارات من شأنه أن يقضي على الصورة النمطية للأدوار الاجتماعية، وأن يسهم في ابتداء حلول تحد من مخاطر الكوارث وتبعات الأزمات. يقع على الأطراف الدولية والإقليمية والوطنية، وفي مقدمتها المؤسسات الوطنية لحقوق الإنسان، مسؤولية تفعيل دورها في تنفيذ قرار مجلس الأمن 1325 لعام 2000 بشأن المرأة والسلام والأمن. وأعتقد أن أول أدوات ذلك هو التقارير المقدمة إلى هيئات معاهدات حقوق الإنسان، وتقارير المراجعة الدورية الشاملة، وتقارير الوفاء بأهداف التنمية المستدامة. كما ينبغي على هذه المؤسسات منتج جسور التعاون مع آليات الأمم المتحدة المعنية بالمرأة في أوقات الصراع، وبخاصة آليات المحاسبة على العنف الجنسي وعدم إفلات مرتكبيها من العقاب. هناك حاجة ماسة لتقوية نظام الحماية الدولي للنساء في أوقات الصراع وحالات الطوارئ، وفي مقدمة ذلك إنشاء المساحات الآمنة لهن من أجل حمايتهن من العنف وتوفير حقوق الصحة والعمل والتعليم والعدالة. أود التذكير بأننا في قطر بادرنا بإطلاق برنامج عالمي لتوفير التعليم للنساء والفتيات في حالات الصراع والطوارئ، فلتتعاون الدول لإطلاق برامج مشابهة في الصحة والعمل وغيرها من الحقوق للنساء في أوقات الصراع. شكرا لكم أصدقائي، وكل أمل أن تسهم مداخلتي بإضافة حقيقية في عالم أفضل لنا وأجيالنا القادمة.
Ladies and gentlemen, the 112 humanitarian crisis we face changed our life from one thing to another. Unfortunately, the big event in Armenia was. I use this opportunity to emphasize, first of all, that every female or male leader from all fields of activity must condemn acts of aberration and perpetrators of humanitarian crisis. Each of us must act to reduce the suffering of families in conflict zones. United Nations Security Council Resolution in Peace and Security at 31 October 2000 affirmed the importance of conflict prevention and resolution. With peace negotiation, peace building, peacekeeping, humanitarian response, and post-conflict reconstruction, and emphasized the importance of women's participation and full involvement with all efforts to ensure and promote peace and security. Appreciating the role of the preventing and resolving the military conflicts,
we promoting peace and security, as well as in the process of making the political and military decision. Dear ladies, we must become promoters of gender equality by supporting the increase in women's representation in the defense sector, by advancing fair and balanced access for women and men who enable leadership or election position in full accordance with performance-based selection procedure. What is the center network required significant participation of men and girls in the prevention and resolution of conflict. We will take formal and informal mediation, crisis management, peace building, and peace negotiation, demobilization. We must encourage and support the equal, full, and effective and significant participation of women in political and public life. A substantial increase in the leadership of women and in participation in all aspects of peace and security is necessary, not only in the interest of human rights and gender equality and inclusive values and social cohesion, but also for the sustainable resolution and conflicts and crises. We have shown that we can perform the same missions and the same functions in the armed forces, respecting the same standards as women and corrects. The role of women leaders in promoting conflict resolution is extremely important because if women leaders join forces to build peace, they can make a significant contribution. Let me underline that the role of women political leaders, a successful international network of women leaders, increased since WPL was founded by Madame Silvana Kokmeri. The opportunity to share our colorful experiences give us very important advice for our communities and for our countries and provide us solutions to multiple challenges. I thank you, everyone, the President, Board, and each national member, the Ambassador of WPL, for this. I hope we can repeat together. Thanks. Thank you.
Women around the world are struggling with peace, with their economy, with inequality. Gender equality cannot be overrated. And let us all be clear on this, that gender equality is benefiting, everybody is benefiting from that. Girls and women, boys and men. Having a gender perspective is a possibility to create a better society and a stronger economy. Gender equality is namely a question of economics. When women work, economies grow. And Sweden is one country that has a lot of our prosperity to thank from gender equality. We know that the Nordic welfare system has been important to build gender equality. By having a welfare state, the unpaid work is paid for. In order to make it easier for women to enter the workforce, you need good childcare and elderly care. Peace and security efforts are more sustainable when women are equal partners in prevention of violent conflicts. And when women are absent from a peace negotiation process, we risk that the war crimes of sexual violence will never be brought up. Finding justice for victims and survivors is essential for a society to move on. Therefore, we need gender equality perspectives also to have a sustainable peace.
Hi everyone, my name is Nema Lugangira and I'm a Member of Parliament from Tanzania, but also the Tanzania Country Ambassador to the Women Political Leaders Organization. Today I'm going to talk to you about the importance of women leaders being at the forefront of advocating, championing and providing humanitarian support at a time of crisis. This takes me back to 2016 when Kagera region, which is my hometown, experienced one of the biggest earthquakes in Tanzania. And during this time, approximately 19 people lost their lives. More than 500 people were injured. More than 2,000 homes were damaged, including schools. This led to the most vulnerable group in the community being extremely distraught. This included children, women, and the elderly. And I remember, as a woman leader and as a founder of an NGO called Agri Thamani Foundation, one of the first instincts that came to mind was we have to make sure that we provide humanitarian support to this most vulnerable group in terms of food, clothing, as well as psychological support. But not only that, we also made sure that we would provide a safety net for children and women not to be subjected to any kinds of gender-based violence during this time of crisis. What does this say? This says that as the world, as communities, in countries, we need to support and empower women leaders to be at the forefront of advocating and providing humanitarian support at a time of crisis. Thank you.
I am Suwani Sirivechapan, member of the Senate from Thailand. It is my great pleasure and honor to share my statement on In Mediation for the WPL Democracy, Peace and Security Summit in Armenia. We all know and see that we have a lot of conflicts everywhere, and women are still the ones who have experienced the worst of the wars, whether from displacement, sexual assault, or a lack of health care. We cannot afford any women or young girls to be left behind. So we have to recognize the importance of women participation in mediation, conflict prevention, peace negotiations, and post-conflict reconstruction. However, the number of women mediators remains low, and women are frequently excluded from decision-making. Without women peace builders, half of the population need would be excluded. My hope is that women come together, increase opportunities for duration of the peacemaking process at all levels, and strengthen their role as mediators by linking knowledge, sharing experience, and making women competence visible. That is why it's so great to have this event. At the same time, the Women, Peace and Security Agenda and SDG 5 on gender play the crucial roles in achieving sustainable peace and development solutions. I call for moving from words to actions by putting forth the WPS implementation and joining the efforts of the international community to promote women's contribution to stability in the world. Thank you for your attention.
When Russia's full-scale invasion started, Ukrainian women had the luxury of choosing the best and the most effective way of serving our country. We could have joined the army and fight at the front, become a volunteer, work at a humanitarian direction, logistics, help evacuating children, work on the cybersecurity field, informational direction, or even go abroad and rally up the support of the free world for our country to help us win the war. This is one of the best traits of the democracy, an ability to define your own future and choose your own path to bring the victory closer. At the time of wars, women feel an enormous pressure and are able to take leadership roles in all the aspects of the society. It is impossible to be successful without the sisterhood and without supporting each other. And this is what we do. I would like to use this opportunity to thank to all the women throughout the world who are standing with us, supporting us with the action, with the thoughts, with the prayers, with the words. We are truly grateful and we will never forget it. Thank you so much for helping our country to fight for the free future, for us and for further generations. We will win this war. We are absolutely sure, and doing everything possible and impossible for it to become true as soon as we can. Thank you so much, and glory to Ukraine.
Hi, I'm Gülnara Şahinyan, founder and chair of Democracy Today in Armenia, NGO that works for 3 decades building peace and promoting rights of women at all stages of peace process. In my professional career, I've also assumed high-level jobs on international arena. Conflicts and wars are a universal challenge that inflict pain, suffering, devastation, poverty, and insecurity on communities around the world. It disrupts lives, displaces family, and leaves scars that last forever. Peace is not merely the absence of conflict. It's a presence and restoration of justice, dignity, and security. In Armenia, we know very well the price for peace and independent democratic statehood. And right to peacefully and safely live in our ancestral lands, we had to face 3 wars, standing for our independence, freedom, and democracy, and women have been always at the forefront of peace policy and played a pivotal role in shaping peaceful communities. Through the history of independent Armenia, women have been pillars of strength for entire society. Similarly to women all over the world, women in Armenia played a pivotal role and impactful role in peace, aiding to important and multifaceted contributions to the world peace. They were preventing the war, advocating for gender-sensitive and inclusive policies, ensuring the inclusion and address the unique needs and vulnerabilities that people face, bringing a wealth of diverse experiences to the peace table, and they are often at the forefront of grassroots peace initiatives, working within their communities to bridge divides. Women will understand that peace cannot be kept by force or achieved through violence. They build networks in the country and across the borders to connect through boundaries and build powerful networks for nonviolence and peace, anti-war and militarism. Their voices are a powerful instrument for mobilizing global support. Democratic Revolutionary Armenia invested in important changes and recognition of important role of women can play in democratic societies. It brought to qualitative changes and new responsible roles for women in the government which they never had before. Women were active in democratic movement and now they are critical actors in building democratic governance and peace in Armenia. Women are architects for peace. Their participation in peace processes isn't merely a matter of equality, it's a matter of necessity. As we seek a world free from violence and conflict, let us rally behind the women and empower that to be life changers and peacemakers. Life starts with women, so is the peace.
Hello everyone. Thank you to the Government of Armenia and Organizing Committee of Women Political Leaders for presenting a platform to address ongoing humanitarian crises throughout the world. I'm Nasreen Fatima Awal, a women rights activist from Bangladesh and elected president of Women Entrepreneur Association of Bangladesh. As we all heading towards 2024, countries across the globe continue to struggle with decade-long conflict, economic turmoil, and the devastating effect of climate change. Especially women are facing additional discrimination, exclusion, invisibility, and violence. The number of crises throughout the world is growing: armed conflict, political instability, food insecurity, and forced displacement, like Bangladesh is facing an alarming humanitarian crisis, which is forced displaced Rohingya community from Myanmar. The refugee population in Bangladesh settlements has more than doubled within 3 decades. Where peace negotiation is an immediate need, I would like to urge global leaders to emphasize on peace rather than war. I believe if we all work together, we can bring positive changes in the life of the affected and oppressed. Thank you.
I'm Basundhara Kaunak, Director of Learning and Development at Running Start. Running Start is a US-based non-partisan non-profit organization that trains young women to be political leaders. At Running Start, we believe that every young woman has political potential. We just need to help them uncover that. We also believe in inclusivity because connecting across differences helps build stronger democracies. In 2015, the UN Security Council adopted Resolution 2250 on youth, peace and security, recognizing the efforts of young people in peace-building efforts. It also called for the inclusion of more young voices in decision-making and implementation related to conflict prevention, resolution, as well as recovery. Despite this, we see that young women are often left out of these efforts, even though they can be some of the most affected by war and conflict. We know that more than half of the world's conflict-related refugee population consists of women and children. We know that gender-based violence is often used as a tool in war and conflict, exposing young women to sexual abuse, violence, and torture. Young women are often treated as passive victims in war and conflict. At Running Start, we believe that every young woman has the right as well as the potential to contribute to a healthy society. Young women must absolutely be a priority in conflict situations as well as in peace-building efforts, and their voice matters. We are willing to partner with organizations around the world to reach more young women, help them uncover their political potential so they can be leaders in their own communities, and advocate for a more peaceful and sustainable future for themselves as well as for others. We want to pour more young women into the political pipeline and help them reach power. Their presence in peace-building efforts can dismantle the deep-rooted cultural stereotypes about what leadership looks like. Thank you.
My name is Zuri Odewale, and today I sit before you all as an example of the power of women-led initiatives in peace mediation and negotiations. When I was 13, I found myself in the midst of potential conflict between Guyana and Venezuela. Now, tensions were rising because of the disputed Essequibo oil territory. Though I was young, I knew that silence wouldn't bring peace. So I took it upon myself to help negotiate peace, meeting first with President David Granger of Guyana. Now, this wasn't easy. There were critics who were dismissive because of my age and my gender, but I firmly believed, and still do, the power and importance of women voices and how they need to be heard at all levels of the decision-making process. Now, my journey didn't stop there. In the face of the Arab blockade of Qatar, which threatened the Middle East, I was invited to help amplify the voices of peace. Now, I met with many leaders, including President Abdel Fattah al-Sisi of Egypt, to talk about and advocate for the need for dialogue and reconciliation. Another battle that I fought was against the deeply ingrained cultural practice of child marriage in Mozambique. But after meeting with President Felipe Nyusi in 2018, after many intense discussions, and with the help of others, Mozambique formally outlawed girl marriage in 2019. It is essential to include women-led initiatives in peace negotiation because women are powerful agents of change. Currently, I'm involved in a diplomatic initiative in the Sahel region, which has recently seen a spate in rapid government changes and challenges. But if we work and choose to be inclusive of our voices and leadership, then we can work towards building a world where conflicts are anticipated and resolved peacefully before escalation.